Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe.
Check right now. I want you to make sure that you're loud. That's the one thing I found on your podcast. A lot of times I can't hardly hear you. Like when I'm going down the road in my car, when I'm going from my phone to my radio, it'll only go so loud. Fuck, some of them I can't even hear you.
I gotta stop. You mean you actually listen to him?
Yeah, I do. I listen to a bunch of them. I like them. But
like newer ones?
well, to be fair, I did start way back at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
You probably had a lot more audio issues back then.
I did, yeah, for sure.
I have also though heard the newer ones like with Greg and me and stuff.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Because I'm always worried about it being too loud for people when it comes on.
You in particular, just because you talk really soft a lot of times.
See?
You know what
That's
I mean?
what I... See? I talk more manly. That's my point.
Yeah. Okay, I've been recording this whole time.
I just got some validity.
So I've been recording... I've been recording this whole time.
He's a strong
And this is going to go in the episode.
It is?
Cool.
Great.
Just so everyone knows I have a sense of humor about myself, I'm going to allow it that Ed Brown, who you heard say he talks more manly than me, we should have, you know what we should do in this episode? We should have a man-off.
Yes.
Let's be clear.
We should have some manly phrases, and we'll see.
Do it.
And guess what? I'll win.
And that was the wonderful Mama Sue, who we just heard. And we've also got Dan Lindholm.
Yo, what's up?
Everyone in this room has been on the show before, except for the puppies. There's a major puppy party happening. There's 4 puppies in here. We are in Trinidad, Colorado. We are investigating, mostly making a documentary about the Mutilation Ranch investigation. That if you've listened to the show, you've heard many interviews with Greg Feinman, and Mama Sue's been on with Greg in the past, talking about the investigation that started, about 2.5 years ago, Mama Sue?
About 2.5 years ago. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and we've been out here for, 4 or 5 days now already?
I've been here a
4 days.
week. So you guys came, a couple days, another day, and then another day.
Yeah, we got her. I believe I got her Thursday. I think you got her Wednesday night. So yeah, so I got her Thursday early evening. You got her Wednesday late night, and I think Dan got her Monday, I believe.
Yeah, I've been here since Monday.
Yeah, and Mama Sue arrived yesterday.
I arrived yesterday.
Amidst the foot of snow.
Yes. Wow. Not expecting that. If you
Yeah.
knew. But I made it.
Yeah.
We were all snowed in, and we couldn't get our vehicles out here for 3 days. None of us could have if we had to.
Yeah. It was. I haven't seen that much snow in a minute.
Yeah.
We are in the 7,000 foot elevation of Colorado, and it is winter. The heart of winter. Would you say the heart of winter? I'd say we're in the heart of winter.
Heart.
Right,
I
smack
would
dab
say.
in the middle.
Right in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg is not with us right now. He's resting up before we go out tonight. So if he wakes up, he may join us by the end of this. But I don't know. Do we want to talk about last night before we get into our man off? Or let's have a quick man off real quick.
Actually,
with
I
Ed
think
and
that kind of described. I think that is part of the man off, because when you were hiding in the corner, I stepped between her and whatever that was. So that gives me points right off the bat. So we'll let that be the man off.
We'll let Sue determine
Oh, no.
who will give her the most manly comfort
Actually, I went
in
to
her
the
time of need.
furthest point I could get away from the thing that's charging me. And you were right there
Yeah.
with open arms.
I just happened
And
to be.
Yes, Ryan held me and made me feel like I was going to be okay.
Just
'Cause
like
it was
any other
frightening.
woman would. I'm kidding. Actually, it was. I'm joking, but it was traumatic. I mean, and there was a lot going on, like really quickly too, and it was
Yes.
it was an interesting event among others that's happened since we've been here.
Yeah, I mean, it was unexpected. I mean, like I said, we're not here trying to film an active. This hasn't been like 5 nights of like, okay, we're investigating. Let's see what we get on camera. This is a documentary,
Right.
That you guys initiated. I don't know how long ago, or maybe a few months back at least, right? or when you came up with the idea to come out here and actually put this on, get the documentary made?
I guess it's been a couple months.
Yeah, Dan mentioned it to me a while back. I mean, it's probably been a lot longer than that, actually.
Yeah.
Dan brought it up to me, and then I called Dan a couple months ago, I guess, and I said, look, we've got to do something. We wanted to go over some ideas, and Dan instantly said, Greg's place. We got to go to Greg's place. So let's do it. So we just made up a date. So let's just plan on this date, and then of course got you involved, and Mama Sue's coming up. So we were. It's been good so far. I think it's been real good so far.
Yeah, it all worked out, and I'm going to give the listeners a 20-second synopsis, just in case they haven't listened to the previous episodes, which I highly recommend you go and listen to any of the UBD, cattle mutilation, all of the episodes and interviews that we've done specifically regarding this ongoing investigation that Greg Feinman started, I think more than a few years ago, and Mama Sue got involved a couple years ago, or if not longer. And it's cattle mutilations, it's the Greys, it's Oma, it's Spirit of a Missing Person, an unsolved open missing persons case, not to mention so much more. It's almost impossible to give a 20-second synopsis like I just said I was going to, and I failed. So that's what we're here doing. So I highly recommend going back and listening to those episodes, and you'll be all caught up on what we're talking about now, because we were having activity at the house last night.
Correct, and I think it's not really fair to the audience to not tell them what happened. We just kind of like teased them about, that thing came at me, she says, and what thing came at her?
Yes.
What thing came at you, Sue?
Yes, I was sitting in a chair, waiting to be interviewed. Correct?
No, actually, I'm sorry.
You guys got dizzy.
No,
I
we got
think
dizzy.
it all happened because we were just hanging out. We had
Absolutely.
no plans on, because
Yeah.
you showed up.
That's right.
Mama
That's
Sue
why
shows
I
up
sat.
yesterday, and we had a football playoffs day, and we were just we did some interviews in the morning, and Mama Sue brings all of this food
Oh yeah.
for us from Pueblo. She just arrives with gifts, It
Well,
was
that's the mama in me.
Yeah.
Just saying.
it was like the fall harvest arrived in person for us.
Right.
And so we do some of that, and then we're just hanging out, talking.
Yeah, actually, me and Sue
Yes.
were looking at some footage that I just got. We just went out to do some B-roll the other day, and Greg and I got total activity on the K2 meter. It was just going off, and I got it on film, and Sue wanted to see it, so we went over to the computer to bring it up, and that's what we were doing over there. We were trying to see that video, and all of a sudden, both of us, but I think predominantly Sue. Honestly, I think that it just felt like I was feeling it off of her. Like I needed to, I even at one point tried to get away from her, go down the hall or whatever, but it didn't really make the feeling go away, so I can't say for sure. But anyway, we both got very dizzy and disoriented, and
Even
I
a
was
little
holding on
angry.
to
I got
Sue,
angry.
actually, and she actually leaned over. She would have fell down if I wasn't right there to hold her up. And like I say, I was dizzy and disoriented as well. And we got a chair over to Sue, and then I sat down, and it was short. Then after that, that's when we started breaking out all the stuff. We said, okay, well, what's going on? Is there something going on in the house tonight? And then we started breaking out all the equipment. Got a spirit box out, right? And we got the portal out, and Greg was messing with them and trying to tell this thing to show itself. And Sue actually got something. What'd you get, Sue?
I almost swallowed my teeth, first off. I was sitting in the chair, and from the far corner of the living room, something charged me. And it was a blurred, white looking, I don't know if it was a mist, a figure, but it was blurry. It didn't have edges, except I saw what looked like two hands reaching out, although I didn't see the fingers, but I saw something reaching for me, charging me, and I have never moved that fast. I have my limitations, and somehow I still managed to fly out of the chair into Ryan's arms, because he was the furthest thing from that thing I could get, and it really did upset me. I I've seen worse things for sure in my life, scarier than that, but it was the shock of it coming at me so quickly, so menacing. It really did shake me up. And we've got all that, so that's good that we've got it.
And I do have to say that it was, as soon as the dizziness happened, and it was almost like a paranormal rubber band snapped into action. And next, it's like in the blink of an eye, Greg's got the devices out. You and Greg are, working the devices, asking the questions, clearly, step by step with one another. Clearly, it really shows how much investigation and how much work you've done together.
Yes.
Because it was literally like you are ready to start busting into an investigation at the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes.
It was pretty cool.
Yes.
But and as interesting as all that was, that wasn't. I don't feel that was the beginning of it, because the 2 nights before, both nights, something touched Dan.
Yes.
And then within minutes, somebody sees a shadow somewhere. Both times.
Two nights in a row.
2 nights in a row. And that was the 2 nights before that. So the last 3 nights, something has happened in this house, right in this area. So tonight
That's a really good point.
Yeah, hopefully.
Dan, can you tell us about the head touch? And then, because you Ed, saw one of the shadows.
Yeah, clearly.
So,
yeah, and it's very interesting that from where Sue said the entity came at her from the corner of the room, both times I got touched, I was no more than 10 feet away from the corner of the room. First time I was down in the garage all by myself, and something touched me in the back on the right side of my head, the back like quarter panel. it felt like somebody like just reached out and hit you with their fingers, like not really like a closed fist or nothing, but and not like slap, not like the palm, but just like the ends of your fingers, and just like reach out and hit you. And it hit me right on my back quarter panel. And the funny thing is, I was up the next night, I was in the living room, and I was only like 6 feet away from the other time I got touched, and only 5 feet away from the corner when I got touched on the right side, the right quarter panel, rear quarter panel of my head. And the first time downstairs, I thought there was one of those hanging strings for a light that was near me, and I thought I must have hit that with my head, but it was completely still. It wasn't moving at all. And a pendulum hanging, it's going to still be swinging if I would have hit it. The second night upstairs, I was sitting on the couch, and the couch has got it's 1.5 feet away from the wall where your back is. I put my head back on the cushion all the way as far as I could, and I could barely touch the curtain back behind me. And I was just sitting in a regular upright position when I got hit in the head. There's absolutely nothing there that could have hit me in the head. And it was interesting because it felt like the same intensity, the same kind of a hit, like just fingers, but not, like I say, not a closed fist, not a slap, but just that same exact feeling of hitting my scalp with fingers on both sides of my head in the back.
and I believe it was the second night that you saw the shadow. The first night it was Greg.
Yeah, the first time Greg saw it down the hallway, and I think this is important. And as I go here, I'll explain that. But what Greg said the first night after Dan was touched, and again, it was literally within a minute of Dan being touched, Greg said he saw a shadow going down the hallway, which, to give you a little layout real quick, you've got the living room, a dining room, and then a hallway that goes down towards the kitchen and bedroom and restroom. And so it was going away from here, from where Dan got touched. And then the second night, right after Dan was touched, because I was sitting between the living room and the dining room and the walkway area, and I was looking at Dan on this side of the room, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow. And at the time, I thought it went from one side of the dining room to the other, but in hindsight, I think we realized that it actually was on the wall going towards the hallway. So it was almost as if both nights it touches Dan in the head, and then runs down towards the back room, almost instantly. So it's like, okay, they know I'm here now. Let me go get ready. It was interesting, but the correlation between the direction the shadows are moving and the timing, and then what happened with Mama Sue from this same corner, and then getting the orb on film. Oh, I don't think we even talked about that yet, did we?
No, we didn't. Let's before we get into that, let's pause just a second here for some ads. Just a reminder, patreon.com/Ryan Singer has all the episodes ad-free, so you can go there if you don't want any interruptions during the episodes. And we're back. So that's interesting that we have a correlation between Dan being touched in the head, a shadow moving from the front of the house towards the back, which is from this corner through the living room, through the dining room, towards the back bedroom that you're saying. Yeah, down the hallway. And then night 3, the third night in a row, that there is something happening from
this wall.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Moving that direction. And we say, in Greg sages the place. He blesses it, does his prayers.
Yes.
We, Dan and I, after the second night of being touched, tried to set some intentions and bubble up a little bit. Because Dan, I think, as exhibited by the dizziness that we were talking about on night 3 and other conversations we've had, deeply empathic, feels a lot of things from other people. So, and not to mention you're traveling the country constantly. So it's like, who knows, all the energy you're picking up and experience along the way, right?
Oh, yeah, so, I'm energetic as hell. No.
We got late night Lindholm showing up just in time for the podcast. There's daytime Dan and then there's late night Lindholm. So real quickly, Mama Sue.
Yes.
This all happened rather fast, right?
Very fast. Not expecting that at all. Although, I should have probably been a little more prepared because I was here 2 weeks previous and I was pushed down twice. I fell 3 times, and I gotta say that the first time, I don't really remember feeling the hands. But it's possible that I was tripped or pushed. The second 2 times, I was pushed very hard. First time from the back, standing right here in the dining area, came at me like it ran at me from the back. Shoved me down. I caught myself with my arm, messed up my arm. And then I stood up, turned around to face it, and again, the only thing I saw was a blur coming at me. I did not see what it was, but it hit me in the chest, knocked me back, bruised my tailbone, something terrible. I don't know why they're picking on me, but, I'm up for it. It's all right. I can handle it.
Yeah, so that is interesting that the thing that came at you last night had its hands out, almost as if it was coming ready to push you again.
Did either one of just out of curiosity, just to extend on that, did either one of the times you were pushed, I know you said one came from behind, right?
Yes, first time from behind. The other time came at me from the chest. Okay. Came right at me, and all I saw again was a blur, just a blur. But so this time it did hit me.
Right. So it got on you faster than you expected, but the second time it snuck up behind you. So it could theoretically have been exactly what you saw last night.
Yes, it
could have been. You just didn't get a glimpse of it the first time when it came up to you. Okay, gotcha, okay.
And it's definitely got a problem with me.
Right.
But that's okay, because I got a problem with it.
Yeah.
Darn right.
That's one thing I noticed last night. Like, once we got the spirit boxes out and Greg and Mama Sue were talking, we're trying to, establish a conversation, and, it was more of a one-sided conversation, with directives towards whatever this was. I do remember, being very present in filming, and then also thinking to myself, I'm so glad that I'm not like one of Mama Sue's misbehaving children, because you do not want to get in trouble with Mama Sue.
No.
Because I was like, Mama Sue is very sweet, very loving, a beacon of light and joy. But when it comes to handling business and, confronting the darker side of spirits and things like that, it's like you turn into this.
Right.
It's like it's almost like a switch flips.
Yes. I've been doing it for so long. The bottom line is I've been doing it for so long. I first communicated with spirits when I was probably 3-4 years old. I have a little bit of memory, not a lot, but because my parents were freaked out with me, and they'd be like, "Who are you talking to, Susie?" And I'd be like, "My friend." No, there's nobody there. Stop it. So I put it away. And it wasn't until I was 28 years old that God pulled it out in me. And since then, I've been confronting spirits and helping many to cross over, to move on.
Do you remember what you said to me before we started recording about the specific message that was given to you? And what was said? What was that?
Yes, the message, this whole thing, what it's all about. Is that what you're talking about?
No, about specifically to you from God, saying,
okay.
Bring this gift back out.
I had a spirit in my home, and I had forgotten about spirits. So, my son was a year old, and he would sleep in his crib, but in the middle of the night, he'd crawl out. He was a year old. He was a monkey. He could climb out, and next thing I know, he's staring in my face in my room. So I moved a twin bed into his bedroom, so when I would hear him start to rouse, no, get back in bed, it's bedtime, Well, this had been happening for a bit, where I was hearing, "Mom," right in my ear, in the weirdest of places, My son was too young to talk. My daughters were in school. My ex-husband was at work, so it was like, there's nobody here, but I kept hearing "Mom." And so this one night, I had sleeping in my son's room, and I woke up because I expected it to be my son. And it wasn't. It was a young spirit of a young girl. And she was bending over, looking into my face. About swallowed my heart, okay? Seriously, shook me up. Froze, couldn't move. Laying there, going, okay, am I nuts? Did somebody slip me something? Trying to logic it out. And no. And then she said "Mom," and it was the voice. And then she stood up, walked past the crib towards the closet, disappeared. And by her walking past the crib, I could tell she was about this tall, about 4 foot, a little over 4 foot. And thanks, Susan. And but I laid there in bed for a long time, just trying to figure things out. And about that time, I hear her voice, and I do believe with all my heart that it was God. And he said to me, "Susan, this is a gift I have given you. Just as my children have free will in life, they also have free will in death. And so many of them are not coming home to me. I want you to help them." And I laid there going, okay, how? What do no instruction, nothing, And then right then is when everything came flooding back. All my memories as a child, seeing people with half a face, guts hanging out, But it didn't bother me because I was a child, And to this day, those things don't scare me. I can see anything, and I don't get scared, except somebody running at me, of course.
Yeah, that'll definitely startle you.
But that was the beginning of. I've actually helped 28 families. Well, they say get rid of a ghost. They're not ghosts. They're people that have a message to share, a reason why they cannot go on, and that's what I do, and I love doing that. And then when I met Greg and all this came about, it was like, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, guess what? Yes, I do. Didn't know.
Yeah, so. It's really amazing, and the combination of the two makes for a great partnership.
Yes, we definitely
when it comes to
work good together.
this whole investigation at Mutilation Ranch, as it's being called, or as it is known here, around here, in this house at least. And so let's specifically, I guess, go back to what we were talking about right before we took a break for a commercial. The video that was taken last night and what we got. I'm curious, Ed, Ed's not an orb guy. This is why I want to start with you.
Right.
Which in my book is a good thing, right?
Well, I mean, you see so much stuff, and everybody's saying that's an orb, that's an orb, that's an orb. There's orb, and you see that stuff, and I mean, 99% of it's either dust or flare, lens flare, whatever, and those things are very. And this is just my opinion, and I'm not trying to down what anyone else's opinions are, and I need to make that clear. But most of it it's exactly what it is. It's dust, or it's a lens flare, or it's something along those lines, and you can, and it's obvious. But so I'm pretty critical about when someone says orb. I'm generally the first person to kind of roll my eyes, like, oh, come on, it's not an orb. But in this particular situation, with what this thing did, there's really no other logical explanation as to what it could be. So.
Yeah, we had multiple different devices filming what was going on. Oh, that reminds me, I'm yet to see.
Yeah, we never did get around to that.
Because my camera, my cell phone,
it was on my camera.
yeah, because just to set the stage a little more, at the moment that this all happened, I was filming down the hall. For some reason, I felt compelled on multiple occasions to film down the hallway.
Yeah, Ryan was filming the exact opposite direction of where everything happened. So Ryan's camera, that's a real manly thing to do. Point. But
It's called strategy.
yeah, it's called strategy. Yeah. So Ryan was filming down the hallway, and Dan and I both got Mama Sue's reaction on camera. However, when everything kind of went down, everything happened so fast. And when I turned around to see what she was looking at, I was trying to look with my eyes instead of the camera. So my camera was actually aiming at the floor because
that
I
was
wasn't.
kind of a girly thing to do. I hate to say.
No, actually, no. See, on the contrary, that was very manly because I was.
Man kept looking at his camera.
I was prepared to take this thing on, so I wasn't worried about the camera.
Oh.
I didn't need the camera. I don't need the camera. So. Yeah. So no, but
You started this, by the way.
I did.
Yeah.
Hey, that's all right. I'm gonna finish it. So when the angle Dan had on his camera, he was able to basically follow Mama Sue all the way over to the doorway. All right. So there is a good chance, and I think we looked at it the best we could do with my computer, and I think you have programs on your computer that you can do things that I can't do. So from what we could see, there is a chance that at worst we got a reflection of the orb. So who knows? And I'm kind of anxious to look at that also. And
Yeah, just by chance, I hear the noise, so I spin around 180 degrees, and that's when I see Mama Sue running right toward me.
Right into your face.
And so I happen to have...
Yes.
Horror on her face.
Yeah, for sure. And it's unsettling.
It is.
And I don't enjoy that happening during an investigation to myself or anyone I'm with as well. And we talked about that a little bit with you having your head touched. We can talk about that later as well. Where basically the overall gist is like, I don't like being touched, and I don't think anybody likes being touched by someone that they haven't given permission to.
Right.
In life or death, whether it's in that way. So I just happened to be having the perfect camera angle because I was compelled to film down the hallway when you turn around and I swivel and I see you coming right at me.
Right.
And then we believe that we have caught something on my camera, which, like I said, we tried, we followed the camera movement to make sure it wasn't a lens flare, things like this. It's the layering of paranormal things that is what compels me the most. The fact that this action just happened, this feeling just happened with Mama Sue, who everyone here knows is the real deal.
Right.
So we have 0% doubt in our mind when something is happening. When Mama Sue says something is happening, we know
It's happening.
something's
We
happening.
don't doubt it.
And then,
Exactly.
but then we get the verification. And again, for me personally, it's more than just the orb on the film. It was the movement and the intelligent decisions it made, and I'll let you go into that. But it literally made a decision to make some movements, which I find
Very compelling.
absolutely 100% intelligent.
Yeah, it is interesting because there seems to be it's kind of like an amorphous orb of light, of mist / energy, transparent thing, and it seems to be coming right where, or it seems to appear right where Mama Sue had been sitting in her chair. And so, and we're looking at it frame by frame by frame. So we're talking milliseconds here.
And it's on its way back, by the way, and this is important as well. It's almost like it got there, Mama Sue had moved, and then it was going back to the corner where it came, and that's the exact direction it went. So,
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And then in its way, the legendarily man of man is in its way. So Ed Brown.
That would be me.
Well,
So-
only a man has a head that big.
Well, no, I mean,
So the orb, when we're talking about intelligent decision, we're talking about the orb reaches Ed, and then it goes up and over
my head, yeah.
Yeah.
Ed's head, that was probably the movement that we saw of this thing that made me understand that there's a real chance this is something
Correct.
that is not explained away by dust, lens flare, or anything else.
No, it made, like I said,
An evasive maneuver.
it did.
Yeah.
It made a conscious decision to move in the manner in which it moved. It wasn't, look, had it been a piece of dust, hypothetically, it would have just went right onto me. It would have gone, it might have even hit Greg, because Greg steps out between Mama Sue and this thing as well. I stepped out there, and again, I don't know what's going on. I'm in my mind, I'm trying to, this is just, what the hell happened? I turn around, and I'm standing there on film, and this light, bluish light is the only way I can describe it. Is that right? Whitish blue?
On the footage I have?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like clear to me, from what I remember,
I was
kind of
like
like
a
transparent
bluish
clear,
tint,
maybe. Possibly, yeah.
But it's coming right at me, and of course I don't see it, but it's coming at me about the height of just below my shoulder, probably. Comes right up to me, turns, does like a climb up over me, and then comes down the other side. That just doesn't. There's dust doesn't move that way.
No. It
A
was avoiding your feminine face.
I don't blame it.
Yeah, it was strange,
For your face,
and
yeah.
it's strange, and when you, because that would be interesting footage if nothing had happened. If we just saw that footage, and the event that we experienced that was very intense
Oh, yeah.
hadn't happened just seconds before capturing that, because we're talking about a window here of about, probably, if I had to guess, on the long side, 5 seconds
Oh, yeah.
max
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah.
from the time
I jumped up.
Yeah, by the time you jumped up, and then we see the orb make evasive maneuvers on its way back, and that is, something that really compels me. And what's interesting too is, it's the representation of whatever this is that is compelling too, because it represents itself. It appears as different things, apparently, to different people, and by different people, I mean whatever is viewing it, and the eye of the camera is one of these different viewpoints, in my opinion. So you have Mama Sue, who sees it as something very specific, with red eyes and arms reaching out toward it. The camera sees it as something different altogether.
Yes.
When capturing it.
I'm just going to interject here for just a second, because I'm not so sure that it's viewed differently. In this particular case, if you were turned this way, you would have had an angle at it as well, right? But you were going down the hallway, which I get, So you're facing down the hallway. Dan was to the other side of the room, facing left of where it came. Greg was on that side where Dan was looking towards Dan, and I was kind of on this side of the room looking the other way. So, because I was looking down at the spirit box, and I had my camera on that, listening to that, So nobody was looking where it was coming, but Mama Sue. She was the only one looking in that direction. So, I think it showed her what it was, whatever it wanted her to see.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the camera viewed it differently. I think it scared her, and then kind of disappeared, hoping everybody else would say, she's just seeing things. Nothing's really there. You know what I mean? I mean, this could have been this, and I know this is theory, it's just a hypothesis, but this could have been an attempt to decredit her. To take away, like, she said she saw something, nothing was there. Right. And I think that, in my opinion, that's what happened. It's just a guess. But
I would just counter with Sue's the only one that sees spirits and stuff. Like, she sees dead people. I think she would be the only one that would see it in that form. I mean, it's just, that's my theory too.
Sure.
It's not. I would just think that it would have probably looked just exactly the same as it did in the other room if one of us would have caught it coming out of that corner. That's just my theory. That's the way it looks for us.
Right.
If we had those special abilities, then we would see what she saw.
Sure. And I wouldn't argue
my
that.
thery.
I wouldn't argue it. I'm just saying
Right. It's totally possible that you're right too. I mean, I'm just saying it's just like,
if I were, let me put it this way: if I were an entity, and I knew Mama Sue's here, and she can pick me out like that, the best way to get her off my back is to defame her,
right.
decredit her.
You're
okay,
right.
so that's, I guess that's how my mind works. So.
Yeah. But
That's
I mean, it could have known that she was going to see it, and that none of us would see it with our naked eye, and in that way, do the same exact thing and try to discredit her.
Well, we've seen shadows, we've seen other things. You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
But that's the first time we've actually seen, or somebody in this
Yeah.
group anyway had seen.
And it was, and it wasn't the only thing that happened.
Right.
So I want to talk about that. I want to take another quick break here, just in case. I don't know how long this is going to go, so depending on the length, this might be a spot where you hear some advertisement. Remember patreon.com/Ryan Singer. Ad-free interviews, experiences, 30-year bonuses, the whole thing. So jump over there for $3 a month. Gets you everything ad-free.
We should also point out that Greg says 3 seconds before that, show yourself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're back, obviously, as you can hear, on the footage that we have. I mean, because anyone listening to this who's ever used a spirit box or any other type of portal or device or whatever, that's out there, understands unless you're doing one question and then putting the box away, there's no way to remember everything you've asked or even to understand everything you've heard in the moment. That's why either recording audio or video was so helpful in these occasions, because you can go back and review footage and you get to see things or hear things that you had no idea even happened. A good example is the Bridges investigation in Florida, where you sent, when I gave you all that footage and you're like, oh my God, did you see all this stuff? I was like, I don't remember that in the moment even.
Right.
And then I hear it later and I'm like, oh my God, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm almost glad I didn't hear it in the moment. Right. We were able to ascertain what Greg had said because we reviewed the footage almost immediately after, well, not immediately, but after things settled down for a moment.
Right, absolutely. And he had said, I mean, it wasn't 3 seconds probably before Mama Sue's ordeal that he had said, and I top of my head right now, I can't remember exactly what it was, so I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying, show yourself or show me who you are or something along those lines right before that happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
I think it's important also to point out that, I mean, these guys weren't really asking nicely. It was kind of
this was a confrontation.
Being intimidating.
Yes.
It was a confrontational deal. So it was very confrontational when it came out to show itself.
Yeah, because just to set the stage a little bit more on that, because it also ties into the thing that happened shortly after. Greg was not happy about something that he did not want in his house being in his house, and that was the tone of the communications to whatever it is that was in here, which had been flavored, peppered, or framed, or however you want to say it, by Dan being touched twice, not being like, oh, it was so great, I got touched in my head. Like, this was unwelcomed contact, and then shadows, and Mama Sue felt something when you walked in. When you first got here, right?
When I first got here, I did, indeed.
Do you remember what you said?
No.
You said, well, it's,
I'm sorry.
Spoiler alert,
Sorry.
She walks in and she goes, well, it was pretty simple. It was just, something is in here.
Oh, yeah.
It was basically
yeah,
just
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It was
yes,
just,
yes.
something is in here, but the way you said it wasn't like, oh, something is in here.
Right.
I'm glad I brought extra sandwiches for it.
Yeah, no. I was aware there was something here not good.
Yeah, something that wasn't good.
And I had I was just a little like, ooh, I'm going to go back into that situation after being pushed down twice. Definitely injured my body. It's not just a little thing. It's permanent. I messed up my arm, my tailbone, So I was just a little bit, but then I'm not the kind to turn around ever. And I knew as soon as I got here, I thought, oh yeah, it's here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was, I didn't realize it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
That this had happened, because I had heard about, you getting pushed, and I didn't realize it was so recent.
Yeah.
And I just remember you sitting in that chair, and this was afterward. You got back in the chair, and I remember, I think there was something along the lines of, you said, "You think I'm a chicken? Come and get it." And I was just like, oh, I was like, we are going here.
Yeah.
I just remember holding the camera being like, okay. Because
Yeah.
you were saying, I am going to get rid of you. This is your chance to talk to us. And you and Greg were like, this is your chance to announce yourself, to say who you are.
Why you're here?
Basically, yes. Basically, I was getting the sense that if you talk to us right now, tell us who you are and what's going on, maybe we won't throw the book at you, so to speak. This is your chance to not get just expelled from this place.
Right.
And it did not seize that opportunity.
Anybody else remember what they heard from the spirit box while it was going?
Oh, there was a few things, but what do you remember?
I remember very distinctly twice that it said, "Hear me." And I said, "I hear you." And then I also, Ed and I both heard it say, "F you."
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I heard that too. Called me a bitch. Just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Called me a bitch.
there were some colorful words mixed in with all the
Yeah.
static and stuff, into those. But yeah, there was it was coming, and we just didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we kind of settled down a little bit. You're no longer feeling dizzy. Either one of you, from what I remember. I remember overhearing you two have a conversation where I think, Dan, you said to Mama Sue, I'm not feeling that anymore. I feel like whatever that was I was feeling is gone. How about you? And I think you agreed with him.
I agreed. Yeah, I didn't. It was gone by the time we discussed it.
So Ed reviews some of the footage. We see the footage where Greg essentially says, show yourself or whatever, and then what happened is what happened. And we're trying to review the footage. We see the orb. Or actually it might have been later that we reviewed the footage, like on my phone.
Yeah.
And then I think, I don't want to speak for Greg, but I think, Ed, when you reviewed the footage and we realized that Mama Sue had been attacked no more than 3 seconds after he said, show yourself. Greg was, first of all, I can say this on behalf of Greg. Greg was not happy about what had happened
Right.
to Mama Sue.
Right.
He was very upset. I even think he takes responsibility for things that
Yes.
he doesn't need to take responsibility for in general, I think.
That's well put.
And it's his home. He brought you into the investigation a couple years ago. He does feel personally responsible for your health and safety
Yes.
when it comes to this investigation, and he cares about you deeply, and he was pissed off.
Yeah.
He was pissed off. And then when we review the footage and we realize that 3 seconds after he said that, that's when what happened. I think it got him. He was upset about that.
Yeah.
So, and I think we entered into a mode where we're getting this son of a bitch out of here now. So that's when we brought out the EMF pumps. He's like, okay, you guys don't feel that anymore. Let's bring out the EMF pumps. This will give whatever it is energy, potentially. We can communicate with it and get it out of here.
Right.
This is kind of where I feel like the night went, if I'm not mistaken, after that slight intermission.
Yeah. Sounds really good.
So, okay, I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page and I'm not like over dramatizing
No.
it or something,
No,
or dramatizing it. So we get the EMF pumps out. We put them in the middle of the dining room. One of them is almost in the living room area. So halfway between the hallway and the front of the house, where all of this stuff kind of originates from when it comes to the head touching and this thing charging, for lack of a better, bluff charging almost, Mama Sue.
Yep.
So
I think, I gotta tell you, I think if she hadn't seen it, I think it would have pushed her again.
It would have hit her.
I think it would have. And we would
Yeah.
have never have gotten anything on tape because you wouldn't have known until after she was hit because you were looking the other way. Dan might have got it coming in on his view. I might have got it coming in on mine, but I think it was coming after her again. But her reaction, it was like, oh shit, is she seen me this time?
Yeah.
And because she hadn't gone very far when we see it going back to where it came from. So I think it was a in, pop, out type thing. That's
which
what
is the a characteristic of that's cowardly behavior.
Yes.
That is and we talked about that too with the spicy language that was coming through the spirit box. Well, obviously something is scared.
That's right.
So
That's when
obviously
they talk
something
like
doesn't
that.
have confidence in its own power because it's trying to scare, because it realizes it's not strong enough to actually do anything about it, so to speak, right?
Right.
And I'm not trying to stir up anything right now, but
We are still in the house.
yeah.
See that's but I'm like the exact opposite. I want to stir it up because if you don't experience it, it's so hard to understand it.
True.
I can't. I hear things all the time, and I won't say people are always lying about stuff, but I hear things all the time, and I'm going, it doesn't sound right to me,
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't there. I can't. If I don't experience it, I can't wrap my head. If I hadn't seen that orb, I might have said, because I had never met Mama Sue until yesterday,
Right,
and this is
right.
nothing personal, but I might have thought,
Mm-hmm.
come on. She sees a figure coming out of the wall. Come on. When nobody else was looking, come on. But we see the orb. It comes on. When you start from the beginning and you start looking at everything that happened, the voices on the box, everything else, Greg saying that, everything. We should have known it was coming. We just weren't in tune to what it was thinking.
You still haven't even told about everything that happened.
Well, yeah, that's what we're getting to now.
Yeah.
So we've got the EMF pumps out, and we put a laser grid up. We get the SLS camera out, and Greg and Sue are communicating again to whatever is here. Looking for responses, looking for it to show itself, looking for an answer, an identity, etc. That goes on for, if I had to guess, I'm going to say roughly 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And then eventually we shut down the SLS camera, we shut down the laser grid, and I was sitting I was sitting right where you are now.
Yes.
So I'm on the couch in the living room, pretty close to the front of the house. And we had a tripod, a handycam on a tripod, and I had my cell phone camera. And I'm getting ready to turn my cell phone camera off. And I think to myself, as soon as I turn my cell phone camera off, this is when something's going to happen. And so in those moments, you can either fight it and nothing will ever happen because you never turn your camera off, or you can just accept this is the nature of paranormal phenomena when trying to document it in many situations. So I turned mine off.
Yes.
Moments later, Ed comes over, and he's got like not a windbreaker, but a winter jacket that's waterproof on. The lights are on in the house. We've turned the lights back on. He moves the tripod, and he's lifting it over like a puppy pin. And I hear what I think is laughter from Mama Sue, who I can no longer see because she's sitting in the chair in the middle of the dining room, and Ed is directly in between my line of sight to see Mama Sue. So I don't think anything of it, but I distinctly heard it. Then tell us what happened on your end, Ed.
Well, at the very same time I heard it as well. And to me it sounded like it came from behind Mama Sue. And I looked over because to me it sounded like a whispering laugh, and I don't know if this will pick it up, but the best I can describe it is that's what it sounded like,
Yes, yes.
And I'm like, the hell? And I looked over to behind, I looked where I thought it came from, and then Mama Sue and Dan, they weren't, they didn't have a reaction yet, So I looked back at you like, did you hear that? And I don't know if I even said it or not.
That's the only reason we talked about it in the first place, because you look at me and you go, did you hear that? And I go, yeah, it was a laugh. I think it was Mama Sue laughing, sitting in the chair.
And it wasn't.
No.
And this is when we all start going, what?
Oh, yeah.
So whatever did it, the bottom line was, whatever did it happened between Ryan, myself, Mama Sue, and Dan. It was kind of in the middle there.
Right in the middle.
Greg heard it as well.
We all heard it.
And Greg too, yes.
Yeah, because we all heard it coming from each other.
Yes.
That was the interesting thing.
Yes.
So,
and the sound originated directly from the area where the EMF pumps were set up.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I swear I just saw a shadow on that curtain, but
I did too, dude.
you just saw
Did
that
you?
I did too.
raising up.
I didn't. It was out of the corner of my eye. All I saw was a light change over there.
Anyway, so right from the front of the house where all this shit has been going
and
on.
I'm
Of
sitting
course,
where
front
Dan
of
was
the
when he
house.
got touched in the
Yeah.
head. So
Yes.
let me sit back. I want to experience it.
It might whack you one.
Touch
So-
me. Go ahead. I'll let them know right now.
And so, Dan, when you heard the laugh,
I thought it was Ed. It correlated with him moving that tripod to me. I thought it was the tripod bumping against the ground, like as he's trying to put it down. And I mean, I wasn't even really paying that much attention, but that's what I got, because it happened at the same time he was trying to put that tripod down, and that's all I thought it was. I thought it was I didn't know how it made that sound, but that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, we even had him see if his jacket made that type of noise.
yeah, because I was like, well,
what
he's
is
got
that?
a
Yeah.
sheer, waterproof kind of
Cincinnati
winter
Bengals
coat,
jacket,
Cincinnati
by the way.
Bengals Houday jacket.
Who day, baby?
And so we had him recreate moving the tripod and lifting it over. And while it did make a very slight sound, it wasn't
It was
the same,
not
and it
a
wasn't
laugh
it wasn't
at
close
all.
to what we heard. So, Mama Sue, what do you remember thinking it was when you heard this?
The spirit the very thing that was mocking us. I feel like even now it wants to mock us. Even now, it's here listening, observing, and it wants to just give us crap.
Yeah, and I think I had a very difficult time falling asleep last night, and I blame the ice maker in the freezer for most of it, because everyone else was asleep after hearing that story that you told me right before bed, and maybe we'll tell that story if you want to on the to end this episode, but because I don't think Ed's heard it yet.
I have still not heard. No, I haven't
So-
watched the film yet. No, I
So
Which
maybe we'll
story?
tell that
Which
story,
one?
the story about the house, the big house with
Chicken
the
feet.
Oh, yeah, I gotta tell you that
So
one.
we'll tell that story, and that's how we'll end this episode. But
Yeah.
I did not have an easy time sleeping last night, and so I do kind of get the sense that whatever might be here, just kind of takes a subtle pleasure in understanding that kind of like discomfort that it can cause, and
Yes.
just being like, just like just being a bastard.
Yeah, that's
that
what
way.
it is. Yeah. I'm not afraid of it, even though it did.
And after
Shook
hearing
me
that
up.
story you told last night, I totally understand why you wouldn't be afraid of this thing.
Yeah.
Because what you experienced previously is, the two aren't even in the same ballpark. As, when it comes to like, okay. Now, I would recommend so we'll launch into that story real quick.
Okay.
But just as a warning to people listening, either do or do not listen to this next story with the lights out late at night if you're all alone.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
So this is what we would
Your
call.
call.
All right,
Oh,
so to
this
set
is
the
what we-
mood, though, real quick, I have to ask this question before you go, and this is just to set the mood in the entire
Yes.
room and the audience. Do you feel there's anything here tonight, right now?
Yes.
Great.
From and we're going to be here a few more nights. By the way, we're not finished yet, and we're going to Mutilation Ranch either later tonight. It's already 7:30, but we're going late night tonight to Mutilation Ranch. If not tonight, we'll go tomorrow night.
Right.
It depends on how the schedule works out. But we had a little break here. Everybody agreed that they would do the podcast, which is great. That we're jamming this in the middle of a busy production schedule. So who knows? There might be updates on what happens in this house over the next few nights, and the documentary will also have. You'll be seeing this footage and all other kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
This will be, because we're documenting from the very beginning of the investigation up until present day. So that's where that stands.
And we'll get you some more stuff, by the way. We'll put some stuff together just for your Patreon. So
Oh yeah, we'll throw some bonus clips out there as like teasers, especially when it gets closer to
absolutely.
coming out.
And we're months away.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Months.
for sure. I think most people understand that it takes a while to put a documentary together.
Absolutely.
So much more so than a regular film, because there's so much more footage. Anyway, so let's just set the stage real quick with what this story entails. This wasn't your first.
No, not by any means, but I had a lady show up at my house. It was just by word of mouth that I was starting to go to houses. People said, "Oh, my house is haunted," and I'd be like, "Don't tell me anything. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to be influenced. So please keep it till later." Well, this lady shows up at my door one night, 3:30 in the morning, the purse in her pajamas, and she told me that she'd had a horrific experience. She was alone in this home, and this is a huge, at the time it's probably 10 million now. Okay, the home was huge, beautiful home, and she was alone in there. And she said as she was watching, I think she was trying to read, but she had the TV on, and the TV would start going off on, off on, off on. And the remote was way over here, so she's like, what the heck? Then the lights in the room started to flash off and on. So she just said, "Oh, well, just leave everything off." But she was kind of shook up. Next thing you know, she had hot breath, stinky hot breath in her face, just right there. And she freaked. I mean, that was all it took. She got in the car, drove to my house, spent the night. I go the next morning thinking I'm all badass, right? And I go in the home and I call it out. I start calling it out. Well, as I get down to the lower level, it's a 4-level home. I'm being very brave and just insisting that it tell me its name, because that is important. Whenever you're dealing with anything demonic, you need to have a name. You can't just say, "Spirit, out of here." You need a name. So I went into the lower level where the furnace was. Now, mind you, these ceilings are pretty high, but it was twice as high. That was a beautiful, big, beautiful home. And I'm commanding it to step forward, tell me its name, and it steps out from behind the furnace. It was so tall, it was bent over. It was so huge, and it was a black, thick mass. And it told me its name, which I was like, what? I mean, I tore out of there so fast, but I got the name. All the way home, I kept thinking, that sounded Spanish to me. Sounds like a Spanish name. So I got home, got on the computer, started looking for it. No. Couldn't find anything close. All of a sudden, it hit me. This is Latin. So I look up the Latin dictionary. Sure enough, it means something like turmoil and confusion and, all this ugly stuff, And so I was smart enough to fast and pray for 3 days before attempting to go back out there. And I did take a friend of mine at that point. I took one friend with me. And we went around just praying and singing and talking to God and, reading out of the Bible and just trying to protect ourselves, but get to the bottom of it. And we started getting, I had a little handheld recorder, and we started getting all kinds of weird stuff coming through on that. So we decided to call 2 more ladies from my church. So we did. And we got down to the lower level. And as we're looking everywhere, again, doing a constant prayer thing, but looking, something tells me to look behind this mattress that is leaning up against the window well. And it's one of those escape, window wells. So it's real deep. But in there is this thing. It's about this big, about this wide, long.
About 3 feet.
About this tall. And it has a body like a, dinosaur. More like a dinosaur, but it did have the serpent-like tail. You know what I mean? And it had real chicken feet. It did not look like they added it later. It looked like it was growing. Okay? Had real animal eyes. And totally freaked me out, of course. And I said, look what I found. And I was going to get it. And one of the girls goes, no, don't touch it. Are you crazy? Don't touch it. So we went and got a box, put some broomsticks through it so we could not have to even touch the box. Knocked it with the broomstick into the box, and we continue to look everywhere. All of a sudden the box starts going. The thing had fallen in upside down. It had righted itself in the box. Yeah.
So what?
Yeah. It was something demonic. All I really know is it was demonic. I was like, the girls were saying, looking at me to be the leader, and I'm like, well, I think we need to burn it. I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna say let's burn it. So we took it out to a place way out of town. We took lots of water so we wouldn't start a fire, but we also took fuel and everything. And on our way going, I was in my car, 4 of us, 2 in each side, boxing in between the girls in the back seat. and starts doing it again, starts moving. They about jumped out of the car, still moving. I mean, it was that crazy. Didn't get to where we planned to go, pulled it out right then and there, dumped it in the road and started it on fire. And it screeched and it screamed. And it took like over an hour and a half to even begin to burn. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. But the screeching was the scary part, man. So I asked the owner if they have you ever seen this? No. Please get it out of the house, you know.
So you it looked like an animal?
Yeah, it
or
looked.
did it look like a toy? I mean,
No, it was not a toy.
Gotcha. Okay.
It looked like it had actually lived at one time, but it wasn't living then. But it actually did have actual eyeballs, and it had the feet that appeared to be growing, not just tied on there or
Right.
Wired on there.
And it's just hiding behind a mattress in the
Yes.
basement, the low level of this huge mansion.
Yes.
And you can't, and I think it's also important to say that when it comes to the name, obviously we're not going to talk about the name. One of the things is you should never be speaking the names, right?
Right. Never say the name. Never say the name.
Once you learn the name, you should not be just going around talking. And many years ago, I had a friend of mine who's a comedian in Atlanta. She had an encounter with a demon, and learned its name. And also, she's I will never say that demon's name out loud.
Never.
I would just never will do it. And so don't even. People don't even bother to try to get her to do it.
Right.
She's not going to do it,
Right.
and for good reason. I guess if you have any kind of close encounter or experience with something of that magnitude, it's no longer a joke. Like, oh no, I'm not going to.
No.
Oh come on, just it's like it's not going to happen. So,
It's serious business, and heavens knows what would have happened to that family, if we had not gotten rid of that, because they were even starting to quarrel between themselves, things that just wasn't them, So
it's one of those things where you burn a. Because when I first heard the story last night, I kind of had the idea that it might have been some kind of like built doll contraption, but so I'm glad you asked that question, Ed.
it was not.
But when you burn something that is, it appears to be just kind of like a stationary thing that doesn't move, right? And then you hear like
And then it
screaming and
screams?
screeching.
Yeah.
That is horrifying. But it makes you understand why when you say, like regarding what happened here last night and things like that, it's like, no, I'm not scared of this thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I can.
Yeah, I've seen worse.
I considering what some of the other stuff you've seen, exactly. Oof.
I'm not scared at all. You guys ready to concede?
Oh my goodness gracious!
Well, now that I know Dan's in on this manly thing, then I'm just done. Yeah, he wins. I mean, the guy's wearing a shirt that says "Every zoo is a petting zoo, unless you're a little bitch."
Okay, I'm gonna beep that out.
Sorry.
Yeah, that is a. It's got just a tiger and a cobra.
Anybody
That
can
is
wear
a
a shirt
good
like
shirt.
that.
I didn't read it till now.
Well, I want to thank everybody for doing this. In the future, obviously, I will be making everyone more than aware of the timeline and the release of the updates on the doc series, and which is tentatively called Fitz, Mutilation Ranch, Friends in the Sky, Mutilation Ranch. Whether or not that'll be the name, when it's released, TBD. But so
It's
thanks.
a working title for now.
A working title for now, and so we've got a few more nights out here. So who knows what's going to happen tonight?
Holy moly.
Yeah. So
I'm ready.
So Ed Brown, Dan Lindholm, Mama Sue, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a fun chat, and I'm looking forward to the next few nights. Can't wait for everyone to see what we've been getting down on film as well for this story. So, and thank you for listening. As always, I appreciate it. I've got live shows. If I do have live shows at ryansingercomedy.com/tour, and you can check all that out. More episodes of The Bridge will be coming out soon. The docu-series I've been making, so look for the next episode, actually, probably in a couple weeks. I'll be dropping that as well. So thanks again, and I hope to see you at a live show or somewhere out there. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.